jog the whole thing?
Yeah. In some ways, running is when I feel most connected to the natural world. I get to do it every day. And so, in a lot of ways, it's a pretty integral part of my appreciation of and love for the natural world. It doesn't feel like, oh, now I'm seeing this and now I'm hearing this. It's sort of a single, full body experience of now I'm engaged in this activity. And in some ways, it's you against the mountain, but also you with the mountain. I'm drawn to running up mountains because in some ways it's one of the hardest things you can do in the sport, right? So running steeply uphill at elevation is probably one of the most difficult things you could try to do within the realm of running, in my opinion. But I think there's also this sense of like, just when your average person sees a mountain, there's a sense of like, I wonder what it's like up there, you know, or I want to get up there. And so I think part of my interest in mountain running comes from that too. It stands as this sort of inviting challenge that draws you to it. I'm Mike Popejoy. I'm trying to set the fastest known time for the ascent of the highest mountains in each of the 6 southwestern United States. Humphreys Peak in Arizona, Wheeler Peak in New Mexico, Mount Elbert in Colorado, Mount Peel and Tukunikiwats in Utah, Wheeler Peak in Nevada, and Mount Whitney in California.
So there's our first objective for the day.
I've always really enjoyed and just loved the activity itself and had a sense that I would just continue doing it as long as I could. Racing always felt serious to me. So like in 6th grade, I think at the end of every race, I came through the finish chute and just like puked my guts at the end of the finish chute. And so like as a 6th grader, like you already have to be taking it kind of seriously, right? To be able to do that and sort of come back week after week and keep doing it. What was it? I think I took 5 cracks at the marathon in order to try and qualify and never really successfully put one together. I can remember thinking like, do I keep grinding the way I have been, you know? Am I taking the right approach, or should I, you know, move on and get serious about something else? So when I finally qualified for the trials in 2015, it was after that I sort of started to make the transition to more trail and mountain stuff. So qualifying for the Olympic trials had been a goal for, since I graduated college, about 7 years that it took me to get. And once I got that, I felt like I was ready for a little bit of a change. So I found that what I was good at was running uphill. And so for the Southwest 7 project, I kind of just wanted to get to know more of the area, you know, get up some mountains that I hadn't been up, travel a little further, get to know the different ecosystems around the Southwest more than I had before. And so it seemed like a good way to do so was to identify, you know, the highest mountains in the area and decided to give them a nice hard run. So. In some ways, part of my philosophical journey is sort of a story of learning that in my opinion, the most sacred thing is the thing that we're all surrounded by, right? The sort of natural world that we all kind of emanated from in different ways. You might call it a religious view of the cosmos as a whole, right? That the universe as a whole is, in some sense, divine. When I moved to Flagstaff and the Southwest and the Colorado Plateau, I just fell in love with this area in general. I basically just tried to do whatever I could do to be able to devote more of my time to what I was really passionate about, which was protecting and conserving some of these places for ourselves, for other species, for future generations. One of the things that I think is beautiful about the sport of running is its continuity back in time through history. Before we had cars, before we had horses, running was the way to get around. Being able to participate in the stories of those landscapes that go back much further than myself and my own traditions is something pretty special, especially in this part of the world. I mean, whenever you're running in the mountains, you've got to plan it around what the weather's like and what the season's like. I like to do a lot of the prep scouting type stuff beforehand, right? So figuring out what the trail's going to look like, what the elevation's like, what the places are where you can push, where you might want to sort of recover. All that stuff I like to, as much as possible, do from sort of scouting maps and elevation profiles and so on. And then when I get to the mountain, I just want to have to basically execute. Get there, pitch a tent, get some good food in me, get to sleep at the right time, get up at the right time the bowel movements accurately, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the morning of is mainly just like my other normal days look like, you know? The first thing I like to do is get out and run, and so when I attack these things, I like to just get up and get going early when the trail's still quiet and the light's the best that it is all day.
This guy is insane. And then it was just like survival mode, you know? Yeah. It's intense.
I don't think I'm attracted to pain. I'd say pain is just part of what this sport, this process is all about. Pain is a thing that happens as part of this sport, and I learned pretty early on that if you want to be successful or meet your goals or whatever your individual approach is in terms of achieving things, I think the way I used to think about it when I really started training hard after college again was to think about like inviting pain to sit down at the table with you, right? Because if you try to resist it and you're trying to push yourself, you're going to be doomed, right? The sooner you accept it and realize this is part of the process and this is sort of an integral, unavoidable thing that you need to learn how to become friends with, the better it's going to be sooner. I always go back to like my mechanics in a lot of ways. And I had a coach in high school, and I remember I'd be doing 400 repeats at like, close to 4-minute mile pace. And he'd always be saying, relax, relax. And I think to myself, like, how the hell can you relax when you're running hard, But learning how to do that was, I think, one of the most valuable things for me. So when I'm pushing it up a mountain, I'm thinking, okay, like turn over the legs, pump the arms, lean into it, like very mechanical ways to keep yourself feeling strong and upright, even when it's hard, is for me the best approach. I would say that there's a certain point, when you get close enough to that peak, there's a certain point where you throw that stuff out, it's just like, just grind as hard as you can, You try and keep things in check, try and prize out your energy exactly right, and then when you've got the last push and you see that peak, you just, drop the reins and go for it.
Established an FKT at Mount Peel, and I think I set one up 2 here too. Up here at the top of Wheeler Peak, highest point in New Mexico, and just broke my FKT from last year.
I think I certainly think about the possibility of failure or not getting the time. I think in a lot of ways, my approach is just to try and squeeze everything out of the tube by the time I get to the top, and then you see where that puts you on the list, And it's sort of silly to be then angry about something that you couldn't have done much different. You're so at your limit with these things that it's almost even hard to like beat yourself up at all, because you're like, am I doing everything I can? Am I, working hard but not redlining it? If so, like, what else can you do?
Part of me's like, I don't know if I could get it even if I came back in a month or two, It might be like, hit the squats for a year and come back next year. If it was third fastest, I'm good with that too. It's a fun struggle.
Breaking all the FKTs is a tall order, and I do that when I set out. So my goal has just been to sort of hit them all as hard as I can and see see where it falls. No promises for all 7. But yeah, I'd like to snag a few and put some times down there that then people later can look at and have something to go after. I don't think second place makes me angry. Um, Someone's got to be there. But where that line comes of what becomes success or not, it's hard to say. There's certain things I can put into words, but other things that I think are harder to capture. In some ways, trail running is a way to blur those lines of self and world. People have compared it to some forms of meditation, and there's sort of different things running through you and a different kind of connection to what's around you. Maybe on a more philosophical level, for me, success involves sort of forging that connection between myself and these places more so than they have been in the past, and in the process learning about these places and about myself. At the end of the day, there's much more important things that have to do with these mountains than who ran up them the fastest.